Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin with a truth you already know but may not yet practice. You are not meant to drift. You are meant to direct. And the force that enables you to take command of your life is consistency. The first step in forcing yourself to be consistent is understanding that no man can be consistent with nothing. You must have a purpose so clear, so definite, that it becomes the fire beneath your feet and the compass in your mind. Without it, you are a ship without a sail, tossed by the waves of distraction, emotion, and circumstance. But when you have a definite purpose, even the roughest seas become opportunities to prove your direction. A definite purpose is not a wish. It is not a vague hope or a hollow dream. It is a decision made with intensity to achieve something so important to you that it overshadows comfort, it outshines fear, and it overrules every excuse. It becomes your obsession, not the kind that burns out quickly, but the kind that fuels you day and night, the kind that whispers in your ear when you're tired, that reminds you why you started when everything in you wants to quit. When you possess that kind of purpose, your mind becomes a magnet for ideas, for strategies, for power. You begin to attract people, events, and resources that align with your direction, not by accident, but by law. Nature honors the man who knows what he wants and moves toward it with unwavering focus. You cannot move consistently toward a vague target. You cannot discipline yourself to chase fog. You must see it, define it, write it down, and commit to it with all the force of your will. And when you do, you'll find the strength to be consistent, not because you feel like it every day, but because you no longer allow how you feel to control what you do. You have a reason, you have a why, and that why becomes your demand. It speaks louder than fatigue. It speaks louder than doubt. And when you fall, as you will, it commands you to rise again, to keep going, because the purpose has not yet been fulfilled. A definite purpose gives meaning to repetition. It gives value to discipline. It transforms every daily act, however small, into a stepping stone towards something far greater than today. Men fail in consistency because they lack clarity and purpose. They scatter their energy. They shift from goal to goal, plan to plan, ambition to ambition, and in the end they become masters of starting but slaves to never finishing. But when you know where you're going, truly know it deep within your soul, then you become a different kind of man. You become the man who persists when others hesitate, the man who moves forward when others retreat. You develop the kind of focus that ignores distraction and the kind of hunger that no delay can starve. And from this, you build the habit of showing up, of acting daily in the direction of your goal, no matter the weather, no matter the mood, no matter the odds. There is no consistency without self-discipline. It is the gatekeeper of greatness, the invisible hand that moves you when comfort says stop and weakness says wait. Most people live their lives driven by feelings. They act only when they are inspired, only when the conditions feel right, only when motivation kisses them in the morning. But that kind of life leads to nothing more than scattered effort and abandoned goals. You must understand that consistency begins with command, and command comes from discipline. At the start, you will not want to do what you must do. That is the reality for every man who chooses the path of purpose. But it is also the opportunity, because if you can act when you don't want to, you can do anything. If you can move yourself forward when everything inside you says stay where you are, then you are no longer a slave to circumstance. You are the master of your fate. Discipline is not punishment. It is power. It is not the enemy of freedom. It is the creator of it. It gives you the ability to choose your results rather than suffer them. It gives you the ability to delay what you want now for what you want most. And in those moments when the bed feels warm, when your energy is low, when the world offers you every reason to stop, discipline reminds you of your promise to yourself. It does not ask for your feelings. It demands your action. That is the difference between the man who finishes and the one who fades away. The finisher acts from decision, not emotion. He follows a plan, not a mood. He has trained himself to obey his own direction, even when it is hard, even when it is lonely, even when no one is watching. Especially then. There will be mornings when your mind says rest, when your body aches, when the fire feels faint. That is when you must rise anyway. that is when you must act anyway. Because what you are building in those moments is not just progress, it is identity. You are becoming a man who is no longer moved by what is easy, but by what is necessary. You are becoming a man who finishes what he starts, who earns the right to believe in himself through daily discipline. You will never be consistent until you stop waiting to feel ready. You will never be consistent until you stop giving yourself an escape. The path is paved by those who act without applause, who sacrifice without sympathy, who grind when it's silent and still move when it's dark. They don't need the world to push them. They push themselves. And in doing so, they develop a force greater than motivation. It is the force of self-respect, built by discipline, reinforced by daily action, and strengthened by every choice made in defiance of ease. Every action you take is a vote for the man you are becoming. What you do once may go unnoticed, but what you do daily writes the story of your life. Consistency is not born from bursts of inspiration. It is born from the formation of habits, and habit is the silent architect of destiny. It does not shout. It does not beg for attention, but it shapes you with quiet power, one choice at a time, one repetition at a time, until the extraordinary becomes ordinary. This is the great secret of all achievement. You do not rise to the level of your ambition. You fall to the level of your habits. So the question is not whether you can act once. The question is whether you can repeat the right action until it becomes automatic, until it becomes who you are. You are not fighting for a perfect day. You are building a pattern. And that pattern begins the moment you decide to show up, regardless of how you feel. Habits begin as discipline. They begin as effort. They begin as a deliberate rejection of laziness and a deliberate embrace of order. At first, your mind resists. At first, your body protests. But with enough repetition, resistance weakens. With enough repetition, your habits begin to carry you forward when willpower runs thin. The man who forces himself to wake early every day will one day find that his body rises before the alarm. The man who forces himself to speak with courage daily will one day find that fear has no more grip. This is the reward of habit, not just achievement, but transformation. Understand that habit is a law. It works with you or against you. It will elevate you or erode you. There are no neutral habits. Every action is training. You are either training yourself for strength or training yourself for weakness. You are either reinforcing progress or reinforcing procrastination. The man who chooses not to act is also building a habit. He is building the habit of quitting. So there is no escape from habit. The only choice is whether yours will serve you or sabotage you. Do not underestimate the power of the small act repeated. The world will praise the man who wins, but it will never see the quiet repetitions that created that victory. The repetitions in silence, the consistency when no one believed, the routine kept even when results had not yet appeared. You must fall in love with that process. You must see every small disciplined act as a step toward mastery, not a meaningless chore, because over time, the compound effect of daily action becomes unstoppable. Over time, the man who built strong habits becomes unrecognizable to the man he once was. He becomes faster, sharper, stronger, not because of one giant leap, but because of thousands of steps taken with intention. That is the true power of habit. That is how consistency becomes not just what you do, but who you are. Emotions are the winds that change without warning. One day they push you forward with fire and energy. The next they pull you into stillness and hesitation. If you build your actions on emotion, your consistency will collapse the moment the feeling fades. You cannot afford to be ruled by something so unstable. If you want to become consistent, you must gain power over your emotions instead of waiting for them to give you permission to act. This is the difference between the common man and the uncommon one. The common man acts when he feels good. The uncommon man acts because he decided to long before his emotions had a say in the matter. You must command yourself to act regardless of emotional weather. This is not about denial. This is about domination. Your emotions are allowed to speak, but they do not get to lead. They do not set the schedule. Your purpose does. Your decision does. Discipline does. Too many people make emotions their guide, and as a result, they move in circles. One step forward, two steps back. They wait for the mood to strike. They wait for motivation to visit. And while they wait, another year disappears. But the man who controls his emotions is never waiting. He is moving. He is producing. He is building even when the fire inside him feels faint, because he understands that feelings are not required. Only action is. Consistency demands that you move when you don't want to, that you keep your promises to yourself when every part of you wants to break them. It demands that you rise while others sleep, that you grind while others rest, that you persist when others fall away, not because you feel strong, but because you've trained your will to act in spite of your feelings. That kind of strength is rare. That kind of power is earned. And you earn it one choice at a time. Every time you act while tired, every time you push through frustration, every time you reject the voice that says not today, you gain control. You grow, you rise above your lower nature. The mind must be trained to obey you. It must be taught to follow order, not impulse. That is what emotional control truly is, not pretending that emotion does not exist, but refusing to let it make the decisions. It means doing the work even when your heart is not in it, because you have already put your soul into the goal. You must be the one who does not flinch under pressure, who does not collapse under mood swings, who does not bow to the weak desire of the moment. That level of self-command changes everything. It removes the roller coaster. It removes the inconsistency. It makes you steady in chaos, dependable under pressure, and unstoppable in the long run. And that is where power lives, not in emotional highs, but in unwavering action in the face of emotional storms. The man who cannot master himself will forever be mastered by everything around him. He will be controlled by his circumstances, his habits, his fears, and the opinions of others. He will start strong but finish weak. He will wish, plan, and promise, but never follow through. Consistency is not found in control over time, over money, or even over opportunity. It is found in control over self. That is the only true power a man can possess. And the moment you decide to take responsibility for your thoughts, your actions, and your responses, you begin to unlock that power. No man becomes consistent until he stops blaming the world and starts commanding himself. Too many people look outward for discipline. They rely on routines that others built. They depend on reminders, motivation, and accountability from someone else. But the man who becomes great is the one who no longer needs to be watched. He becomes his own authority. He keeps his own promises, even in secret. He doesn't need to be inspired. He's already decided. And because of that decision, he forces himself forward every day, not with ease, but with strength. Real consistency doesn't require perfect conditions. It only requires that you no longer negotiate with weakness. When you master yourself, you stop making excuses. You stop looking for reasons to delay. You stop listening to the inner voice that whispers doubt and distraction. You take control of your mind the way a soldier takes control of his weapon, with focus, with respect, and with the understanding that your life depends on it, because it does. The man who cannot direct himself will be pulled by the world until he forgets who he is. He will become reactive, fragile, and directionless. But the man who leads himself can walk through storms and never break. He can face defeat and never fold. He can build day by day until success is no longer a question of if, but a matter of when. You must train your mind the way an athlete trains his body, every day, without exception. You must condition your thoughts to align with your vision. When your body says stop, your mind must say go. When your emotions say give up, your discipline must say stand firm. This is the battle that defines every great achievement, the battle between the man you are and the man you must become. And that battle is fought in silence, in solitude, in the daily choices no one sees. No applause, no recognition, only resistance, and you choosing to overcome it again and again. The outside world cannot give you consistency. It cannot give you mastery. That is something only you can choose, something only you can build, something only you can enforce. When you stop waiting to feel ready and start choosing to act regardless of how you feel, you begin the process of becoming a master of self. And from that mastery, you gain the right to be consistent. Not once, not for a week, but for a lifetime. Excuses are lies dressed in reason. They sound smart, they feel justified, but they are poison to consistency and success. Every time you make one, you trade your power for comfort. You give away the very thing that separates winners from wishers, responsibility. The man who makes excuses becomes a prisoner in his own mind. He believes he is explaining his situation, but in truth he is explaining his failure. And the more he explains, the more permanent it becomes. Excuses are not just words. They are agreements with weakness. And if you allow them to live, they will take root and grow into habits that sabotage everything you try to build. You must become ruthless with your own mind, ruthless with your standards. You must declare war on every excuse, no matter how small or how logical it may seem, because behind every excuse is a moment where you gave yourself permission to quit. And if you give yourself that permission often enough, quitting becomes a pattern. It becomes your normal. You start justifying why you didn't show up, why you didn't follow through, why you didn't finish. And suddenly your life is filled with potential that never turned into progress. Not because you weren't capable, but because you allowed yourself to believe the lie that something outside of you was to blame. The consistent man is not the one with more time, more talent, or more luck. He is simply the one who removed excuses from his vocabulary. He took full ownership. He stopped blaming his past. He stopped blaming people. He stopped blaming timing, energy, and external conditions. He looked at his results and said, "This is mine, all of it, good or bad. And I will fix it or I will fall, but I will not lie to myself about why I failed." That level of honesty is rare, but it is required because nothing strong is built on false foundations. There will always be reasons not to act. Your mind will present them to you daily, and they will seem reasonable, even noble. "I'm tired. It's not the right time. I've been through a lot." These thoughts may feel real, but they are designed to protect you from discomfort, not to guide you toward greatness. You must learn to hear them and move anyway. You must develop the inner voice that answers back and says, "None of that matters. I do what is required." That is the voice of discipline. That is the voice of consistency. And that is the voice that drowns out every excuse that tries to pull you off course. Every excuse you eliminate makes you stronger. Every time you act in defiance of one, you reclaim a piece of yourself. You become the man who no longer looks for a way out, but a way through. And when that becomes your nature, consistency is no longer a challenge. It becomes your way of life. Persistence is the fire that refuses to go out. It is the quiet power behind every man who has ever built anything worth remembering. It is not glamorous. It is not loud. It does not always come with results you can see right away. But it is the one force that makes consistency possible when everything else has failed. Because there will be days when progress is invisible. Days when you put in the work and nothing seems to move. Days when it feels like effort is being poured into a black hole. And on those days, the only thing that keeps a man going is the decision to persist no matter what. Persistence is not about speed. It is not about perfection. It is about refusal. Refusal to quit. Refusal to be broken. Refusal to believe that the obstacles in front of you are stronger than the force within you. Most men fall because they only work when it's working. They show up when the rewards are quick, when the praise is flowing, when the feedback is immediate. But when it gets quiet, when the path becomes unclear, when it seems like no one sees or cares, that's when they stop. That's when they vanish. Because they were never committed, only interested. And interest doesn't build legacies. Only persistence does. You must learn to fall in love with the process, not just the progress. You must find your strength in showing up, not just in winning. Because the truth is, you will fail. You will be ignored, you will be misunderstood, doubted, and overlooked. But if you keep going, if you keep building, if you keep choosing to act when quitting would be easier, you will separate yourself from the masses, not by talent, not by luck, but by endurance. You will develop a different kind of energy, one that doesn't depend on how you feel, but on what you've decided. There will be no applause in the middle. There will be no signs telling you you're on the right track. But if your vision is clear, if your purpose is strong, then persistence becomes non-negotiable. You are no longer acting for immediate reward. You are acting because it is who you are. You push forward not just to achieve the goal, but to become the man worthy of it. That's the true power of persistence. It doesn't just change your circumstances, it changes your character. It builds the kind of resolve that nothing can shake. It sharpens your focus, hardens your will, and teaches you how to survive every storm without losing your direction. Most people want results tomorrow. They want shortcuts, fast tracks, and guarantees. But the persistent man understands that true rewards are reserved for those who keep going long after others have stopped. He shows up after the motivation is gone. He works after the excitement is dead. He climbs after the strength is gone, because what drives him is not just desire, but decision, not just emotion, but commitment. And from that commitment comes an unstoppable consistency that no delay, no defeat, and no difficulty can destroy when a man knows why he moves, how he moves becomes unstoppable. Purpose is the root of all consistency. Without it, discipline fades, habits break, and emotion takes control. But when your actions are tied to something greater than convenience, when they are grounded in a purpose that sets your soul on fire, you no longer need motivation. You become the motivation. You become the force that moves through resistance, that stands when others sit, that endures not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. Purpose gives you the reason to keep showing up. And the man who has a reason can bear any struggle, outlast any delay, and rebuild after any defeat. Purpose is not a luxury. It is not some vague concept for the fortunate few. It is the responsibility of every man who wants to live a life of meaning and leave behind something more than comfort. You must ask yourself what you are willing to sacrifice for. What are you willing to suffer for? Because anything great demands a price, and unless your reason is strong enough, you will abandon the payment. That is why so many start strong and end small. They never connected their action to a mission. They were working for approval, for applause, for a quick win. And when those things disappeared, so did their effort. But the man who acts with purpose does not wait for applause. He does not need the world to agree. He is not shaken by criticism or delay. He wakes up driven not by the clock, but by the call within him. His work is his message. His effort is his signature. And every time he takes another step, even when progress is slow, he proves that his life is led by conviction, not comfort. That is how consistency becomes effortless, not because it is easy, but because it is aligned. When your actions serve your purpose, they are no longer a burden. They are a part of who you are. You must find that purpose and hold it close. You must remind yourself daily why you cannot quit, why you must continue, why what you are building matters, because the world will try to distract you. It will offer you easier paths. It will tempt you with short-term rewards that lead nowhere. But if your purpose is strong, you will not be moved. You will not be lured away from the path. You will not trade what you want most for what you want now. You will act not from pressure, but from principle. You will show up not out of fear, but out of fire. And that kind of man cannot be stopped. The man with purpose moves different. He thinks long-term. He acts daily. He builds when others sleep. He believes before the proof arrives.